So yeah, a short update on IPv6 deployment. First, some introductions. I'm Steffann. I'm an independent consultant, Lisp ISP, co-chair of the RIPE Address Policy Working Group, so really involved in handing out v4 and v6 addresses and the policies around that. Co-founder of the Netherlands IPv6 Foundation, and I am the leader of the Dutch IPv6 Task Force ISP subgroup. So, what are we going to look at? First, we're going to look at transit, then content, then eyeballs, and then I'm going to carefully try to draw some conclusions. So, first the transit part. Basically, these days, every decent transit provider can provide IPv6 connectivity. There are many of them that you can use. And if they don't provide v6, find another one. I mean, you really want a transit provider that takes their job seriously. If they don't provide v6 by now, then they really don't know what they're doing. So I think the transit part is pretty okay. You have to check if everybody's carrying a full routing table. We had some discussions about that a bit earlier, but yeah, so it should be possible to get decent transit on v6. So how about the content? Well, first look back at why actually do content providers use v6. So if you v4 is basically going down. I mean, v4 will not get better. It'll get worse. There will be more natting, more address sharing. So there will be more and more problems. So if you can offer your content on v6, you can circumvent all those problems. The other one is visibility. With all the carrier-grade natting going on, the content provider can't see who's accessing his service anymore. So I've talked to a big Dutch content provider from television. They had problems with people posting threads on forums, and they had no idea where they came from. There was no way to trace them. They were just coming from behind some NAT box. So things like that get difficult. Geo-IP-based services, if somebody's coming from behind a carrier-grade NAT, there's no way you can use those anymore. So there are reasons for content providers to deploy v6. And on World IPv6 Launch, the big ones have shown that it can be done. There were some problems. I mean, it wasn't painless in the beginning. The Happy Eyeballs implementation was unfortunately needed. I mean, it's a hack, but it made sure that content providers that start offering content on v6 could do so without running the risk that some people couldn't access it because they had a broken v6 connection. Especially companies like Google. I mean, if your internet connection isn't working, you go to Google. If Google isn't working, then you might go to Bing or something. So there was a big risk for them. So actually being able to safely deploy v6 was a huge issue, and I think World IPv6 Day and World IPv6 Launch solved those problems and showed that it can be done, and it can be done in a reliable way. So there are still some problems with v6 content. What I see is that a lot of data centers or big hosting providers don't support v6 or don't properly support v6. I was really annoyed to hear that a big, well-known CDN network actually charges extra if you want to offer your content on v6. Yeah, I'm standing in front of the logo, so. I still hear some arguments from the hosting industry that say, oh, but nobody's using v6, so why should we bother? Well, I think later in the presentation, when we look at the eyeballs, at the viewers of the content, we're going to prove them wrong. So, looking at the graph, not that visible. If you look at the graph, this is the weighted average of the top 50 servers in a certain country. I've taken them from Eric Finke's status pages. The ones here at the top are basically Switzerland. Sorry, no, saying it the wrong way. This is the US, Czech Republic is here, and of course, sorry Jan, Slovenia. So on content, these are the other top countries. It's unfortunately not very visible here on the projection, but so the rest of them are here in the middle. And where is Poland? It's the blue one. So Poland is also here in the middle somewhere. So what we see is that at World IPv6 launch, there was a big jump. A lot of content became available in the top 50 of the websites, but unfortunately after that, it stayed that way. I mean, there are some spikes, some changes, but nothing really major. So it's clearly visible World IPv6 Day, World IPv6 launch, but after that, it's too stable in my opinion. So Slovenia, Czech Republic lead at the moment. Unfortunately, not much progress since then. There is a document on the ISOC website about making content available over v6. So if you're responsible for some content, take a look at it. It doesn't have to be that hard. So on to the eyeballs. So eyeballs is, for those who don't know, is the term for viewers of content. So the usual residential customers at home watching YouTube, going to Facebook, stuff like that. So this part of the internet is the part where the address shortage is really going to cause pain, because the most IP addresses are used in the access networks. That's where they're needed, and that's where we have run out. So those users will go behind a NAT. They will have to share ports, A+P framework, MAP, DS Lite. There will be lots of things to share addresses to for the access providers to make sure that they can still offer connectivity to their users. Now, v4 is getting expensive. There's a huge shortage on the transfer market. Well, obviously, the RIPE NCC is out, so you can't get any new ones. So, yeah, ISPs have to invest in sharing solutions in one way or the other, buy extra addresses. So, if they buy big NAT boxes, then all the traffic they can do on v6 will save money on the NAT side. I mean, you don't have to buy a big NAT box if you can offload all the Facebook and YouTube and Netflix traffic to v6. So I think there's a reasonable incentive here for those companies to actually offer v6. Now, if we look at the users, we see a completely different picture. This is Romania. They have been doing a lot of v6 for a long time. Switzerland came out of nowhere, also started doing v6. So those are now suddenly the leading countries in v6 on the access side. Poland is this blue line here at the bottom. It's at 0.01%, I think, or something like that, or 0.03. But there's some work to be done here in this country. For the rest, you see the big jumps. The rest is pretty flat. There's some growth here in Germany and the US. So some things are happening, but what you see mostly is the big jumps if one large ISP suddenly starts doing v6. And here in Romania and in Switzerland, it was really noticeable. Switzerland went from below average to the leading country in Europe in a couple of days. Another way of looking at this is BitTorrent. Eric Finke also runs a BitTorrent machine that actually tries to see which BitTorrent clients can connect to it over v6. So, and there you see the same. The US shows up, and zooming in on Europe a bit, you see Romania again. Switzerland, unfortunately, there was no measurement data. France is doing pretty well with the free. Even Belgium is coming now. The Netherlands, my home country, unfortunately not. Germany is visible, but Poland is missing as well from this view. So those are the basic numbers. And what I notice is, if you look at the transits, you see that transits are available. If you really want to, you can get v6 connectivity. Now, the v6 content side is too stable, in my opinion. the big players, Google, YouTube, Facebook, Netflix, they are offering services over v6. After that, not that much has happened. The rest of the websites, of course, there are a lot of smaller websites that are deploying v6, but if you look at the major players, most of them haven't moved since World IPv6 launch, and I think that needs to change. On the other hand, we now have a rising number of eyeballs. There are actually people who having IPv6 in their home, being able to use it. So I think if that number pushes a bit higher, then the content people also will wake up again. I mean, we do have the most important ones. I mean, I'm not that pessimistic, but we need some more, probably coming after the eyeballs. And the eyeballs are growing fast. The number of eyeballs getting v6 is going up. Some countries, like unfortunately my own, have keep postponing their v6 deployment. But as you see, France has been big for a very long time. Romania came up very quickly. Switzerland came up very quickly. So a couple of big players offering v6 can make a huge difference there. So I think that's moving in the right direction, and I hope that if the eyeballs come, that the content will be pulled along as well. Now, one thing that I found funny was that there's no apparent link between the content and the eyeballs. Slovenia and the Czech Republic are leading in content on v6, but they're almost at the bottom when connecting eyeballs. And the other way around it as well. Romania, Switzerland are really big in eyeballs, but I don't see them anywhere in the content graphs. So maybe that's because most of the important content parties are international, so people go to Google and Facebook and the big ones. But yeah, I found it really interesting to see that there's no link between them. You would expect that a country that has a lot of eyeballs would also attract the content, or the other way around, but unfortunately not. So I don't know if this is a problem, but it's at least interesting to see. Now I think I've been talking a bit too fast because I'm already at the end of my presentation. So any questions about v6 deployment? Jan, I was waiting for you. Yes.
So hi, Jan George. Just great speech. Like I would like to explain a bit why there is no linkage, at least in my country. So you wrote that stuff, how to enable IPv6, how to enable content on IPv6,
yeah.
And that's fairly easy to do. You just go and talk to people, and they will enable it. Okay, but we all saw that in the last year there was a radio silence in IPv6 area. Why? Because people from the community and the operators realized that it's time to start working on it. So everyone, not everyone, many of them went home, are not coming to the conferences, are working hard in the lab, testing things behind the curtain. So there is no word from them, and I suspect that this year and next year we'll see many jumps like Switzerland and Romania. Because, you know, for the incumbent telecom, it's quite easy. If they are DSL provider, they enable it on BRAS, and if they have IPv6 enabled CPEs or Windows machines that calls with the PPPoE, then you will see the big jumps. So now what I see is the curtain and the radio silence in this area, and I hope I'm right.
I hope you're right. By the way, that's one thing that really annoys me about the big ISPs. They don't come to conferences, they don't talk about their v6 deployment. It might be that a few big players are actually very far in deploying v6, but you never hear about it. I think that's bad, because if it seems that they're not doing anything, then other people will also not be motivated to start moving. So.
Imagine what happens when ION and DT enables
Yeah. I think that's I think Germany would pass Switzerland. Yeah, definitely.
But one thing is enabling, the other thing is the devices which is on the customer side. For example, in Poland, for example, I am using UPC. It is Liberty Global brand or something.
Yeah.
Until now, they didn't offer any boxes. You should use your own router. Only recently they start using their own boxes as Wi-Fi devices and so on. So I think it is also the problem that operators know that users do not have IPv6 ready boxes, and it is many boxes in Poland, I think.
Yeah, but there's two sides to this. If you have, I mean, there are two different models. I use UPC in the Netherlands as well. They are one of the parties that actually announced that they were postponing their v6 deployment. But I agree with you. Even if they enabled v6, a lot of CPEs wouldn't be able to use it. But then at least you would have the choice of being able to use it. So using that as an excuse of not deploying it, I mean, that'll slowly change. If you enable it, CPEs will get replaced. A lot of CPEs who were sold in the last couple of years actually do v6. So.
But you know, it's not my excuse because
No.
I am using some kind of home router, but I'm using a Linux on this, Open WRT. So I am aware of this and I am eager to try it in my phone.
No, but I mean, the excuse from UPC.
As we spoke earlier, I work also on the operator side. And operators see that everybody is not using, sorry, most of them is not using the proper boxes. They're not going to invest because it won't do anything.
Yeah, but CPEs get replaced, and like I said, a lot of
Wait 1, 2 years to exchange these boxes.
Yeah, but I would be happy as an ISP. You enable it, the boxes slowly get replaced, the traffic volume goes up slowly. I think it would be a good migration scenario. So.
Ivan Pepelniak. First,
there you are.
First, I'm sick and tired of hearing about CPEs. Because honestly, there were IPv6 enabled CPEs on the market for a few years. And every service provider who is using that as an excuse today is plain stupid. Sorry about that. So
you have your installed base, but for new deployment.
Well, yeah, but you should have started replacing CPEs 2 years ago, or at least installing the new ones 2 years ago. So whoever is saying today, well, I have this huge installed base of CPEs that I can't replace, sorry, you were asleep at the wheel. That's not an excuse. The other thing you also have to keep in mind when comparing the countries is that, at least in Europe, the internet market is pretty stable. So, all the population has internet. What can you do next? So, for the residential customers that are on wireline, you don't get that many new customers. So why would you move them from IPv4 to IPv6? You already have the addresses. It's only the mobile market where you will see the growth. And you know what the problem is in the mobile market? How many IPv6 capable phones on 3G do you have today?
Yeah, that's a big problem. But the argument that a lot of the ISPs use to say, oh, we have plenty of v4 addresses, we don't need v6. I mean, they clearly don't understand it, because their users might have v4, but the rest of the world is not as stable as this market. So, yeah, I think that's really short-sighted to say, oh, we have plenty of v4, we don't do v6.
Sorry, a short comment about CPE in a mobile network. We spent with my colleagues in Orange Poland 24 months bringing IPv6 into mobile. Actually, we finished this around 3 months ago. This is IPv6 only solution. And next, we spent, of course, working with CPE vendors to bring some devices. And currently, Xperia family support IPv6 including customization for our network, which is RFC CLAT 6788. So I think bringing IPv6 into the market is not only preparing your network. Later on, you have to talk to the vendors and spend almost the same amount of time. Thank you.
If I may add to this, totally agree with you, but you should start talking with the vendors before you start preparing your network. Because you will be done earlier with your network and all the tests, then the vendors will be ready.
Yeah.
That's actually what we did. At the beginning, we start talking to the vendors, but imagine what was happening in the mobile part. Nokia says, sorry, Symbian is dead, we're moving into Windows, right? It was 2 years ago, exactly. They refused to bring any features we would like to have, especially for our networking customization. So we said, okay, Symbian is dead. What we can do next? Let's focus on Android. Android is Google, right? So the vendors always look what Google is doing. So Google was progressing with IPv6, and it was, we have to wait for a good version, right? Let's say 4.2.1, which supports IPv6 quite well. So actually, it was done in the same time. But nowadays, we can benefit from that. Thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, I think these additions are really good. The mobile market is one that really surprised me. I mean, that's the market where you expect growth, and that's where the vendors are just not doing V6 very well. At least haven't been doing V6 well for way too long. So.
In the US, 3 of the 4 mobile networks, T-Mobile, AT&T and Verizon are all doing V6 on their LTE networks. So I don't know, in some parts of the world, bizarrely enough, I mean, they're doing very, very well.
Yeah. Does anybody know if the latest iPhones do IPv6 on 3.4G?
iPhone 5 definitely does. I saw it as soon as it was turned on Verizon. My iPhone in the US started doing V6 just happily.
Ah, great.
Sorry, Dave Freeman here. Just to add to that comment, it's not the iPhone itself, it's the firmware in the baseband, the thing that's like strictly regulated that isn't user updatable trivially. That supports V6 now. The iPhone's actually supported V6 over PvP just fine, and V6 over wireless as well. It was getting that update put into the baseband and doing the interop testing with all the GGSNs that was the big problem. And that, I believe, has now been solved, which means that any iPhone capable of running that baseband, which I think is the most recent set of 2 or 3, is capable of doing this on its next upgrade to R7.
Ah, good to hear. Thanks.
iPhone 5 is doing it on 6.
They've had the baseband pre-installed. The iOS is actually a bundle which contains the baseband and the main firmware that everyone sees and associates with the iPhone. But if you had an iPhone 5, you would have had the new baseband first anyway.
And actually, there is quite good news. I heard from Lorenzo that the 464 XLAT that is fixing that 15% of IPv4 only applications on IPv6 only environment will be by default enabled, or is, in a Nexus 7 LTE version of tablets. So I still need to get one and test it, because in Slovenia, you know, we enabled IPv6 on 3 mobile operators. So I have a big lab size of the country. And when I get this LTE version of Nexus 7, I will test it and report back. And hopefully, if it works like we showed in Paris, then we fixed majority of the problems for the mobile operators.
Cool. Thank you. Nope.
Jan, you are right. We have this sample in Poland as well. Lorenzo did a good job. I even borrowed him my SIM card just to validate this product some months ago. There is a problem with tethering, unfortunately, at least for this sample we have. This is production sample, but this issue is addressed. But it's good that they decided to bring, because native IPv6 in mobile network is not enough. There are too many services, content, which is IPv4, let's say, using literals in web pages, so you cannot simply access them. But I would like to only add one thing about the roaming, because the mobility is important part in mobile world. You can do, of course, in your home PLMN, IPv6, whatever you want. But you have to think what to do if the customer is going abroad. That's a huge problem. We have to work on that very hard to bring some fallback method in case of the visiting network do not support IPv6. So together with my colleagues, we are also surprised that the dual stack is so hardly pushed into the mobile part. Dual stack support is, I would say, minimal among roaming partners. So really, the IPv6, native IPv6 for mobile network is quite easy. The fallback methods are available at least for Android. And, well, thank you.
Thank you. And according to the counter here in front of me, I think we should round it up now. So thank you for your participation. And